Good evening and welcome to the Job Search Solution, the radio program where we talk about looking for a job, changing jobs, changing careers, hiring. And as always, we begin with a prayer. Dear God, grant us thy peace and thy mercy, thy will be done. And in just a few minutes, as we do every Wednesday evening, Rich Savinci is going to be with us talking about consultants in the workplace. And he's got a great topic this evening, as he always does. As we do every evening, we're going to spend 10 seconds being grateful. So think of 3 things today you are grateful for. This evening that you're grateful for today. Go. You just can't be unhappy when you're grateful. That's all there is to it. An attitude of gratitude. Just plain old grateful. Had an interesting thing happen last week and wanted to share it with you. It's the story of Todd. Todd was a really good candidate. Todd had been in his last job, his present job, for 10 years. He was making pretty good money, not the best, but pretty good money. Loved his job, loved what he was doing, liked the people that he was working with. But he always in the back of his mind felt like he ought to be making more money. Well, it came time for Todd and his wife, or their first child was going off to college. And Todd's wife started telling Todd that he really needed to make more money because they were going to spend more money on their first child's college tuition and college program. And Todd's father-in-law got on the bandwagon and started telling Todd that Todd ought to be making more money and that his present company was taking advantage of him and that he'd been there 10 years and he wasn't making the kind of money that he ought to be making and that they were taking advantage of him and he needed to be making more money. And they were this and doing that. And Todd really needed to have a better job. So Todd's father was a client of ours, and he sent Todd to us. And Todd was a good worker. Todd had good pedigree, good skills, a good background, somebody that we could market pretty well. And so we started to do that. And Todd went on the interviews and he voiced his opinion, though, that he really liked the job he had and he liked the people that he worked for, but he just needed to make more money because he had a kid going to college and he felt like he really needed to make more money and to please his family and probably do better. He limped through the first 2 interviews pretty badly. So we told Todd, look, Todd, if you're going to do this, pal, you need to set yourself a lot harder than what you're doing. And you need to act like you want a job and you need to get with it. Well, Todd's pretty good. So he did exactly that. He started interviewing better, came across well, and Todd, we found him a job. And he interviewed real well, and he got a $25,000 raise more than what he was making. And everybody was happy that Todd, at least for a while. And then Todd started his new job. Well, it was 10 miles further than Todd had driven before. It was a much bigger company than Todd had worked for before. And the atmosphere wasn't as familial and collegiate as he would really like. And even though he was making a lot more money, his wife was happy. His father-in-law was happy. His dad was pretty happy about it too. 6 months later, Todd quit and went back to his present job. Well, the moral to the story is you got to leave a job and take another job for your reasons. Can't do it for somebody else's reasons. Todd was happy with the job he had. His wife told him he needed to make more money. His father-in-law told him he needed to make more money. He did end up making more money, but he wasn't happy. He didn't like the job. He didn't like the people. He didn't like having to drive. He just wasn't happy. Didn't like having to drive more miles. He didn't like the job. You got to leave a job and take another job for your own reasons, not for somebody else's reasons. And if you're not convinced that you should take another job, don't do it. He wound up being, now, the people that hired him back at $10,000 more than what he was making before. So he did get a $10,000 raise out of it. But the emotional strain and the emotional challenge that he went through to do the whole thing wasn't worth it. He didn't like the job. He didn't perform very well. He just plain didn't like it. Your reasons. Changing a job has to be for your reasons, not somebody else's. Everybody needs to make more money. Yeah, we all do. But money, there's more to money. There's more than money to a job change. A lot more to it. You got to be comfortable with what you do and comfortable who you do it with and be doing it for your reasons, not somebody else's reasons. So from time to time, we get people that come down to see us that are really changing jobs for somebody else's reasons, not their own. They try to please, they want to please, but they have to please themselves. They're the ones that have to show up every day. Todd went back to his old company. That's what he was familiar with, and that's what he liked. So think about that as you go along. Leave a job, take a new job for your reasons, not for someone else's. All right, we're going to take a short break. Stay tuned. This is Tony Bashir with the Job Search Solution.